Thanks for joining us for This Week in Odyssey, where subscribers to Odyssey, the print MIS for marketing ideas for printers, can discover what's new in Odyssey and learn about the best practices to use Odyssey to its fullest. Let's get started.
Welcome to the second installment of This Week in Odyssey. We'll be presenting these webinars every other Wednesday. And if you happen to miss last week, there's just a few things that I'll mention again that will be helpful to you as you navigate Odyssey. We also save these recordings and they will be available shortly after. So if you happen to miss being live, that's no problem. You can always review these at your own convenient time. So I say, let's jump on in here. So like I mentioned, a couple things that if you missed last week, we have Odyssey release notes that are released every other week now. And the location that you can find these is any page within your Odyssey. There's a help button at the very top, as you can see wedged in there between the navigation bar. And if you simply select that help button, you're going to see Odyssey release notes at the very top. And that'll take you, as Dave is showing us, to the location in our knowledge base articles. That'll show us what's been happening the past couple of weeks, some features and bug fixes and things like that that have been fixed in Odyssey. So there's a good location that you can find those release notes for our Odyssey users. So yeah, I was gonna say they snuck in with that last release, but we feel that's very critical that we mention those again.
There's a lot of good stuff here too, and we always like to put the kind of our favorites on there. So Trish, what are your favorites? I know we got a handful of features and bug fixes. So what have been the highlights for you that came out of this last 2-week cycle?
I see that. There's quite a few features. I'm going to go over the top 3 that I thought would be best to speak about. So the first one is get approval on order changes. And what this entails is we've given you, the Odyssey user, a new feature to give you the opportunity to actually send order changes to your customer for approval, or you can accept the changes on the customer's behalf. So you really don't have to do anything different. Odyssey will automatically prompt you when changes are made, and then you can see how you want to handle it. So we put a little bit more customization in the approval of those orders when there's an order change for you. The next one that I thought would be pretty good to talk about is global settings for press difficulty. So you can actually set the difficulty settings for sheets of paper by category. So to just use this new tool, you'll see a little globe icon next to press difficulty in the paper resource settings. So if you hit that little globe icon, then all those papers within that category will receive the same difficulty setting. So we've made that available as well as a little bit easier feature. The third top feature.
Look at that one, Trish.
Yeah, we certainly can.
I'm going to go off script here a bit, but I think I'm going to be worth switching over. And to be honest, I'm not even quite sure which installation of Odyssey I'm on, but we're just going to look at paper anyways to do that. So let me just pull one of those up here, clear out some of my previous search here. We'll just go to this one. So this is the one you're talking about here, is that right?
Yep, there it is, right next to press difficulty, correct. And as you can see, it gets a little bit more detailed when you press that globe button, but you can basically set the difficulty based on your paper category. So in this case, it's book, text, and offset. You have different papers within those, and so you can actually set the press difficulty depending on the type of paper. 100 is usually the norm. Again, if you want something running a little bit faster, you can set that a little bit lower. If something takes a little bit longer, that would be a higher value. So there's a little bit more information there on the screen as Dave is showing us, where you can read more about that little globe icon.
Super. Thanks for letting me hop off script there.
Excellent, no problem. The third top new feature based on those Odyssey release notes was this is dealing with actually our marketing component Odyssey. So for those of you that may have been used marketing, or maybe you quite haven't gotten that far yet, we had it automated where the marketing campaigns would process every half hour. We thought, you know what, we need to have that a little bit sooner. What if you want to send something out much sooner? So now we've tightened that window where your campaigns can run every 5 minutes to give you a little bit more flexibility in that regard. So if you're using marketing, you now have every 5 minutes you can run a campaign. If you haven't used marketing yet, you'll be able to set those and run those fairly quickly one after the other. So that is the top 3 features that I thought would be great to go over within those release notes.
Sounds good. Let me ask you a question on that marketing thing, because I know that when we set up a marketing campaign, and maybe because that's the last one, maybe I'll really go off script here again today, and we'll just go to one. Let's see. Well, again, I'm not in my own campaign here or my own installation, so maybe I better not go too much deeper into that. But the reason I wanted to stop there is we can still define how much time happens between marketing events, correct?
Yes, you can still define the time lapse between those. But what I'm understanding is now that they can run every 5 minutes instead of every half hour.
Okay, so it's just a lot more efficient triggering of when an event happens.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, well, and
Cut
that
down the
matches up a lot with what I've seen coming out of our development team is just that huge focus they have of just really dialing in and finding ways to make Odyssey more efficient. And that kind of sounds like that's one of those areas.
Exactly. Anytime we're trying to find something that's more efficient or put the flexibility into the user's hands is what we're looking after. And this is just a few of the things that we've been able to do in that regard.
All right.
Excellent. So back to those release notes. So at the top, again, we were talking about a couple features, and down below we have some bug fixes. And I thought I'd talk about just a quick overview of a couple of them that I thought might be more important than others or affect more users on a wide base. So the first one I just want to quick go over was it's called the active filter showing completed campaigns. So again, this might go along with the marketing campaign that we were just talking about before. When you're viewing the list of all the active marketing campaigns, the completed ones were also appearing in that list for some reason. So we've actually cleaned that up. So only the active campaigns are now showing in that active campaign list. You'll no longer see ones that have completed or ones that have also been active. You will simply just now see all the ones that are active. So that'll be a little bit easier on your eyes when you're in the marketing campaign area.
Sounds good.
All right. And the second bug fix I thought I would mention is this is called errors breaking navigation with the estimate. And I've heard a couple printers might have some frustration with this. I personally haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean it's happened. But if there happened to be an error in a component and the Odyssey user navigated to a different part of the estimate, at times it made further navigation impossible or really difficult. So we've cleaned this up so that that error doesn't prohibit you from further progress until a save is attempted. So while you're in a estimate and in a component, you should see less issues and less forward progress. You should be able to save and continue on as you would expect. So that was a pretty important one there to go over.
Absolutely.
All right.
So the big thing I think here is, if someone is just looking at this on the recording perhaps and just wondering what is that all about, this is some of the kind of the down deeper stuff that's really helpful to the people that are already using Odyssey. And so that's what I really like, seeing all of those release notes and bug fixes all consolidated in one place so that our customers can get to those nice and easily.
Yep, good point. Those that use it on a regular basis or more regularly will notice that, those bug fixes and that sort of thing have been improved. So you're correct. It's usually those that use it more would see it, but certainly those that aren't using as much will also might come across those enhancements every once in a while as well. So with that said, we just want to reiterate where those release notes are found again. Any page within Odyssey, there's the help button in the upper right. You simply select that, and there's the Odyssey release notes link. One other thing I thought I would mention quick while we're in that help section, Dave, is we also have a view Odyssey documentation link. So this actually takes us to our user guide that is found on our website. It's simply mark ideas for printers /Odyssey-user guide. So this is something we had mentioned last week, and I thought it'd be great to bring up again in case you missed it. You have questions, if you're, it's midnight and we're not available and you want to see if you can find the answer, this is a great way. It's intuitive, it's scrolling, you can search. You can even download the PDF if you so wish, but this is the location if you are looking for the user guide and have some questions. There's still always going to be improvements and adjustments made to this, so it's a working model, you could say, but I would say with our first iteration, there's quite a wealth of information. So if you have a question and we're not available, please use this as well.
Well, and the other word I was going to throw in there too, you said it's intuitive, and it is. It's all of that, but it's also long, and that's a good thing too.
Yes.
You can just pull in that scroll bar. And what Trish is probably going to be too polite to mention, boy, she's cracked open a couple of cans of midnight oil to write that one. So again, I know I said that the last time here too, but Trish, I just want to kind of say that out loud for everyone to hear. We really appreciate what you've done to turn this guide into reality.
Anything that'll help our users so that we can help them seamlessly get into Odyssey. And if you print this out, it's over 270 pages. So I would say if you have enough data on your computer, go right ahead. But otherwise, we have it easily available within our website, so you don't have to worry about saving or printing off a PDF. So that's some good information there that can be found directly within Odyssey that'll link you to different pages that talk about our release notes and our user guide.
Yeah, really, really good stuff.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'd say with that, we could probably move on to what we have as a hands-on or a how-to that Dave might be speaking about here.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm just kind of debating. I've already went off script once. I might actually do it again here. So I think I will, if you'll give me the opportunity to really mess up and make a fool of myself here.
Oh, no, you're fine.
That all the time. So I'm going to start big picture. I'm going to pull up a different screen here, and it's been it's become a favorite quote of mine really since the beginning of Odyssey, before anyone other than us knew that it was going to exist. And it's from a guy we just heard speak at a leadership development conference just last week. And I've heard him speak before, and this quote, well, actually, he did say it at this conference, but he also said it at the previous time I'd heard him. And it's as simple as this, is to reach people no one is reaching, you have to do things that no one is doing. And Craig Groeschel is the author of that quote. And it is so true. And that is really what has just been a driving force in our approach to building Odyssey. And if you paraphrase it into printer talk, it's really to reach print buyers that no one else is reaching. You have to do things that other printers aren't doing. And that's what Odyssey is all about. So there's my off-script moment. And if I can try to bring that back and show you one of the ways that might be happening, I'm going to give that a try. So we'll see how that works out. But the part that I wanted to talk about is as we're onboarding some of our Odyssey subscribers, one of the things that comes up is my other MIS, my legacy MIS, does it this way. And we kind of say, okay, well, here's how you can do that in Odyssey. But that's not always the best ways, because Odyssey does have a different approach. It's not going to be the exact same in every case. But I did want to show a little bit about how that might happen. So here are the details I'll dig into. And I am going to pull up a resource. This one is, I don't think we've completely fine-tuned it yet, but it's fine-tuned enough where I can pull it up. And one of our customers has cash certify and barcode. And the way that this printer is charging for that is to say it's a $10, well, I guess I don't remember right off the top of my head how many dollars per thousand. I want to say it's $10 per thousand, per thousand records cash certified and barcoded, $10 per thousand with a $50 minimum. And Odyssey really holds true to that cost plus approach to pricing, and it makes it a little different approach on how we accomplish that. Now, what I'm not saying is that we want to do it that exact same way every time, but I am saying that here's one way that can be accomplished. And so essentially what we're doing is reverse engineering that, because we're saying it's not really a flat rate, it's varying with each unit of 1,000, but it's kind of established rate that's not so much based on time. Well, we're going to use time and run speed, well, mostly time, to accomplish that same thing. So just to keep things nice and easy, we're going to say it's $60 an hour or $1 a minute. And so if it's $1 and 10, each unit of 1,000 is $10, we start playing around with that and with our run speed, and ultimately we get to that same equation. And then here's the part also that I wanted to mention as well. If we're having a minimum charge of $50 minimum, well, if $1 equaling 1 minute, we can say 50 minutes is the minimum. And the way that looks on an estimate, let me pull that up, is like this. Here's the line that we're talking about, cash, certify, and barcode. Now here's our $50 minimum. We have it at some different quantities, 2,500, 4,000, and 10,000, 10,100 actually. So we're saying here's 2.5 units of 1,000 or 4 units of 1,000. Well, that's still not at that minimum of $50, so that's why it automatically bumps up to, not looking at the wrong line here, bumping up to 50 in both of those lines. And then our last one is 10,100, so 10 units of 1,000, or we go over that extra 100 and it's going to round up to that, that extra unit of 1,000, so 11 units of 1,000, and that's what that is, that $110. Now, the reason I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit is because if you're looking at the time calculation, now keep in mind this is just kind of some experimental data that I've been playing with here, but if you look at that time calculation, you might be thinking, well, that's not right. It doesn't take that long to sell it, or I'm sorry, take that long to run it. Well, that's kind of an indicator of a problem. And to kind of go back the other way, and this is kind of where I wanted to go back to that quote, the other way of looking at it is if we're playing with those variables, some printers are coming up and saying, well, it's charging how much? It's charging $110. And again, this is kind of a made up number in this case, but the math is still true. Charging $110 and the printer saying, I can't sell it for that much. Well, that's the challenge, and Odyssey can kind of cause you to think through that a little bit, because if you're not charging the amount that it takes to do that, when you calculate all the time and the resources required, that's not necessarily Odyssey's issue. That might be, if I could just kind of point a little bit of a finger, that might be your issue as the printer, to make sure that you're getting the value you deserve, honestly. And so that's a little bit of an interesting path that we've been on as we've been onboarding people, as people are kind of hanging on to some of the legacy ideas. And I would encourage our customers and the people that are perhaps looking at this recording and thinking about Odyssey, that here is a new way of approaching pricing. Maybe not totally brand new. There's a lot of things that are going to be similar to what you are perhaps used to. But you might run into some things like I just showed you that are going to challenge some of your assumptions on how pricing can be handled.
That's a good point to bring up, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. And hopefully I didn't go too far off script, but it's really what brings it back to that quote again. It's really what has been one of the driving forces in our development of Odyssey, is to reach people no one is reaching. You have to do things that no one is doing. This is a new era. It certainly is for us and for a lot of you as well. And there's a lot of print buyers that are living in that new era as well. And we want to help you go get them. And to do that, you may have to do things that no one is doing. So excellent. That was it. Wanted to share that.
Yep, that was well said, Dave. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So I think after that deep dive there into that topic, we are just about ready to wrap up. So we just want to thank everyone for joining today. And again, if you're not able to join us, I believe that this recording will be available later on with the YouTube link. So we just thank everybody that's able to attend, and please check us out after the fact if you weren't able to.
Thanks for joining us for This Week in Odyssey. For those watching live, stick around for a 2-question survey. Join us in 2 weeks for the next edition of This Week in Odyssey. To learn more about Odyssey, please go to mi4p.com/MIS. That's mi4p.com/MIS. On behalf of the whole team at Marketing Ideas for Printers, thanks for joining us.